Alright, welcome back to another episode of the What Made This Game Good series I got going on. Today is obviously something, again, a little bit different from Resident Evil, and this is Alien Isolation. Now, for those who don't know, Alien Isolation is a game set in the Alien movie universe. If you don't know what those are, one, how, and two, if, again, you don't know what they are, and haven't watched them, I would recommend you go watch them because they're very good films. They're quite old, but nonetheless, they are really good, and this game is set between the first and the second movie. You do not need to have watched the movies to kind of get what's going on in the game. There is a big story point involved with the character from the movie, but the events don't really continue. It's more like a intermission between the two. So I've been looking at the game, briefly go over the story and the gameplay aspects of this game, which made me personally really enjoy playing it through way back when it came out. Okay, so in this game, you follow Amanda Ripley. This is the daughter of Ellen Ripley from the movies. At the end of the first Alien film, the events take place, though I will not say because spoilers, and this takes place around quite a few years after the end of that movie. Obviously, you can tell because obviously Ripley's daughter's fully grown up, and she's now working on a spaceship as well, and she's out there basically trying to find out what happened to her mum, and she gets approached by this guy called Samuels, who offers her work with him, and they're kind of set with a goal to go and investigate this space station. And when you board it, it's just a derelict. Like, there's no one around. It's destroyed. And as it turns out, when you board, eventually you come across the alien, which is the iconic character from the movies, and I think everyone would know what an alien would look like. And you basically have to kind of figure out what's going on while avoiding this thing, because it is not to be messed with. Like, this thing will hunt you down. The AI in this game is unbelievably smart. In my opinion, it's one of the best AI monsters in a game. And there's no fighting back, so you have to hide or run. You cannot fight back in this game. But that's the story premise, so let's get into the gameplay, shall we? Okay, so as mentioned, this game, it does have combat. It does have combat. It's not just the alien you come across some synthetics as well, I believe they're called, which do kind of also try and kill you. They're essentially like these human-looking robots, just to kind of put it in simple terms, and you can fight back against those. You do have guns. You can find that the ammo is very limited. It's like 1 or 2 shots, and you get a flamethrower later on, which can be used to kind of scare the alien off. That does kind of have an effect on it. And you have, amongst other things, like I believe there's a couple of melee weapons you can use to kind of fight the synthetics, but that doesn't work on an alien. The alien is kind of like an ever looming threat in the game. Imagine like Mr. X from Resident Evil 2 Remake, where he's constantly following you around. But instead of it being, if he gets you, he hits you over and damages you, in this game it's if he gets you, you're dead. Like, that's it. You are dead. So, the game has a lot of hiding mechanics. You can hide in lockers, in vents, but this thing can find you. Like, you're not safe hiding in a vent or hiding in a locker. Like, it will find you. There's a lot of mechanics with the game that work with the AI. Obviously, sound. It is attracted by sound. There's a couple of options. If you have a PlayStation camera, which I do, upon starting this game up, when I recorded this gameplay not long ago, because I haven't played it in a while, and the PS5, my save doesn't exist, so that's a problem. But you have a couple of options at the beginning where, if you say yes, any sound coming from the camera affects the actions of the alien, so you kind of have to be quiet yourself. And any movement through the camera kind of affects how your character peeks around corners. I don't really know how that works, I never really tried it, but that's definitely a really cool system to play in. But yeah, again, the AI is super clever. Like, sometimes it even baits you. Like, it will kind of go away from where you are. And usually in this type of game, Outlast or whatever, like, when it kind of walks away, you're kind of good. But in this game, it'll walk away, and it'll come out of hiding, and it'll immediately run back in. Like, it just gets you immediately, which is just so annoying. But another thing about this game that's really cool, and this is something to take away from the movies. This is what a big thing in the movies is. You get this motion sensor in your hand, and it makes this really iconic noise from the films, and you'll know what I'm talking about if you've seen the movies. And it's it's sort of like a close proximity scanner basically. So when the alien's close, it makes this really like just panicking, like blinking noise. I can't really like reenact the noise, and I'm not gonna do that. But it's just it's intense. It's always intense. There's a lot of trying to figure out the layout of the map in the area because, in a sense, like the RE games and stuff like that, there's items you need to progress. You have to know where they are. You have to know where to get back to put them, and it's just because of the unpredictableness of the AI. It's kind of an extra layer because it could come out of nowhere. It can come out of vents. It can go through doors. It can be like behind you the whole time. You wouldn't even know. Some of the death animations, it's just behind you and you don't even know. Like it just stabs you through the chest or comes over the top of your head, and it's just like, holy shit! It is so cool. Honestly, it's amazing. In terms of the other mechanics of the game, like this is not just the play action. This is more like the environments and the puzzles and stuff like that. There's a lot of those. There's always like puzzle-esque type things in this type of game. Whether it's find these items and put them together, or go into this room and figure out how to open this door, or even I believe there's one point in this game that kind of comes to mind is you're in like a lobby, and you have to wait for the door to open, and a bunch of like, not loads, but like a fair amount of synthetics turn up to try and stop you, and you do not have much to deal with them. But at the same time, the alien doesn't really care about those either. Like, he'll kill them too. So in a way, you can kind of manipulate the alien to find these things for you. Obviously, it's a risk because it can just come straight through for you afterwards. But I feel that's it's a good advantage. You can kind of like throw something in the direction of where the synthetics are, and the alien might just go over there and investigate, maybe, and it'll kill them. But again, the AI is super smart, and sometimes it doesn't really fall for that. Like you're just still gonna be hiding from the alien and synthetics at the same time. But again, even outside of player actions, there's so much going on in this game in terms of like the environment and things you can do to kind of help you or not help you, so to speak. One more thing I want to talk about in terms of the alien itself is probably the last massive point of the game that really gets me. It does have some kind of learning AI throughout the progression of the game. So let's just say, for example, you're in the early part of the game when the alien first appears, and for the most part you're hiding in lockers, okay, and it works for the most part, right? It usually loses you throughout the game. If you keep doing that, it's gonna figure out that's what you're doing, and it's gonna search lockers more. Like, there's some kind of learning to it. It's not massive, so it's not like impossible to hide in a locker after some points, but it will more likely check the things that you've been doing the most. Like if you're hiding in vents, it'll come in the vents. If you're hiding in lockers, it'll come in the lockers. If you're running, it will track you better. There's a lot of learning, which means you have to really kind of adapt on the go. You have to kind of change up your playstyle, and there's plenty of options in all the arenas of the game and all the levels. There's plenty of decisions you can make that are different each time, so you can kind of keep the alien itself on its toes. But for the most part, if you keep doing the same thing and you think it's working, it's going to stop working eventually. Like, you're going to be in a situation you cannot just get away from it while doing the same thing over and over again, which is really cool, especially on hard difficulties, because the game recommends you play on hard in this game first, which again is fine because it kind of, you can't fight the alien anyway, so it's not like it's going to make a difference in terms of getting away or fighting back, because you can't. No weapons you earn in the game will help you fight it, and the only thing that really makes it difficult is obviously the synthetics get more HP and hit harder, but the alien's always a one shot. So if you're worried about playing on hard difficulties because of that, then it's not really that big of a deal, I would say. Finally, obviously, there's always a segment at the end where I'll talk about the replayability of the game. Obviously, there's the hard difficulties, which is, with any survival horror game, it's encouraged to play it on each difficulty just to kind of get a feel for how much it ups it. And I would say in this game, it does up it quite well. I think Nightmare is the hardest difficulty, and that is a nightmare, as you would think. But in terms of replayability, there's a couple of DLCs I never really touched on. I got one, with the game a launch called Crew Expendable, which is a brief DLC set in the universe of the first game. I think you actually play as Ripley from the movie in that one. It's not very long, but it's super cool anyway. And then there's a couple more DLCs for the game specifically. But on the disc, there is a mode called Survivor Mode. When it's doing like this after you beat the game, and essentially it puts you in a. It might be procedurally generated in a way, but it puts you in certain maps, and you're tasked with escaping the map as quick as possible. Obviously, the best time is a better record. The faster you get out, the better you score at the end, and it's just super cool. Like, it's a good way to kind of get used to how the alien learns and reacts. Obviously, the main game has different areas and it's going to play out differently, but you can kind of get a feel for what the alien kind of how it reacts to things, and you can kind of experiment around with it. So when you go into the hard difficulties, you can kind of just lay out a plan of action, I guess. It's super fun anyway. It is super fun, but replayability is definitely there. So again, this is a game where you don't just want to play once and then leave it. You can definitely go back, try out hard difficulties, and play the DLCs and the extra mode. And that is basically going to cover it. I mean, Alien Isolation is a great game. As with most of the games, I always kind of review. I guess it's not really a review; it's just kind of my personal opinions. I'm not reviewing the game in detail. I'm just saying, like, this game is good. This is why I liked it, and it's kind of posting my opinion. But others might think differently. Some people might not like this game. Some people might love this game, and some people might have never played it. If you've never played it, I would recommend you do, because it's quite a good experience. And if you haven't seen the movies and that's throwing you off, don't worry too much, because any kind of story you need from the films is kind of covered for you in this. And again, it's not canon. Like, you don't need to watch the first movie and then play this game, because it doesn't really cross any kind of paths other than the fact that you're playing as the main hero's daughter from the movies. Like, that's really as far as it goes. Locations are different and characters are different, so you don't need to kind of know anything about it. You can go into it with a fresh mind, and that's a good way to get into a game. It's good when developers do this, when they have a game in a universe that's already existing, but you don't really need to have a massive knowledge of it. I think that's really good. But yeah, that's going to do it with Alien Isolation. There's a few more games I want to cover in this quote-unquote series over the next couple of weeks, but I have a lot more planned in terms of Resident Evil content for the next week or so, so these might take a backseat for a bit, but I'll be back with something soon. I'll probably post on Twitter what it's going to be. If you're not following me there, I'll leave a link to it in the description. And thank you all for stopping by. Let me know your opinions on Alien Isolation in the comments, and I'll see you all in the next one.